Hey everyone, big news! We've launched a brand new Beyond the Mask website, professionally redesigned to give you a better experience. It's easier to navigate, better organized, and makes it simple to find episodes, explore our exclusive series, and access helpful resources for CRNAs, including CE credits and the 1099 CRNA Institute. Check it out at beyondthemaskpodcast.com.
Welcome to Beyond the Mask. Today we're highlighting SONAR, the Society of Nurse Anesthesiology and Research, a community dedicated to advancing nurse-led research and evidence-based practice in obstetrics. Good Lord, I'm glad it's y'all and not me. SONAR brings together clinicians, educators, and scholars who are committed to asking meaningful questions, generating impactful research, and translating evidence into safer patient care. Their work strengthens our profession by ensuring nurse anesthesia continues to grow not only in practice but in knowledge. Because when we go beyond the mask, we don't just see providers, we see researchers and leaders shaping the future of healthcare.
CRNA Financial Planning is a sponsor of Beyond the Mask podcast. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group. Nothing in this podcast should be construed as investment advice. Plus, did you know listening to our podcast can earn you Class B credits? For details on how to submit, visit the CE credit section at beyondthemaskpodcast.com. Welcome to Beyond the Mask, innovation and opportunities for CRNAs and advanced practice nurses, with certified financial planner Jeremy Stanley and CRNA Sharon Pierce. Jeremy Stanley has worked with CRNAs for more than 23 years, and Sharon Pierce is a former president of the AANA and the NCANA. Join us as we leave the operating room and learn the latest in the CRNA and advanced practice nurse industries. Beyond the Mask starts in 10, 9, 8, 7.
Aaron, great job on there, obstetric. It got you a little worried for a second.
My God, that was a long sentence, and I do not like obstetrics. So I'm going to be muscling through this, and so glad that there are people like you who do like obstetrics, because it's not me.
So we've got three wonderful guests with us today, and we're going to welcome them to the show. Sheena Warner, Susie Newell, and Jonathan Alvarado. So thank you guys for being here. If you would just briefly take a second for those that might not know you and kind of introduce yourselves to our listeners and folks that are viewing us.
All right, Jonathan, you're up first.
All right. So my name is Jonathan Alvarado. I am originally from Ecuador, but I lived in Seattle for almost a decade. I have been CRNA for about 10 years. Actually coming up. Obstetric anesthesia has been, my main areas of practice. Primarily in Washington State, we practice in the second busiest obstetric department in the state, and it's run by CRNAs entirely. That's where everything started. I think with the idea of SONAR, I was part of the commission of the state and the nursing commission for a couple of years, and then just on the business side of things as well, bringing that knowledge into development of quality metrics and how to manage this big department. Sometimes it's kind of hard, especially with OB. So yeah, that's me.
All right, Susie. I mean, a lot of our folks will know Susie. She's been around, and a lot of people know her. So, but why don't you give us a little brief introduction for you as well?
I'm Susie Newell. I'm a CRNA that's been in obstetric anesthesia my whole career, about 22 years, and 21 years. Jonathan and I had similar ideas at a similar time, and we talked to each other, and SONAR was born from that. So that's it about me for now.
Sheena, you're up.
Hello, everyone. I am Sheena Warner. I am an obstetric CRNA. I am also the co-owner and COO of Bam Bam OB Enterprises, an OB-only, CRNA-only anesthesia group across multiple states. I'm also a PhD student at Emory University, where I study maternal morbidity and mortality at the intersection of obstetric anesthesia and machine learning.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sharon.
You'll get no competition from me at all. At all. So, Susie, we've had you on the podcast before and talked a little bit about SONAR. So, why don't you give our audience an overview about SONAR, how it started, and then we'll go from there because this is to provide them with an update of all the good things that you guys have accomplished.
And we've been doing a lot lately. So, SONAR began when, like I said, Jonathan and I came together, and I was very frustrated at my inability to make change within a field that I felt CRNAs dominated. We dominate a lot of anesthesia in general, but in this case, we don't have an AANA for obstetric anesthesia. We only have other organizations run by other professions. And as a result, when decisions are made nationally and internationally, our vote gets canceled. So one of the things that happened around the time that Jonathan and I were talking was ACOG came out with their new recommendations that said level 2 nurseries need to have an in-house physician's anesthesiologist. And I've worked in obstetric anesthesia in the heart of the opioid crisis for decades. And I'm telling you right now, a bunch of us have level 2 nurseries simply to treat neonatal abstinence syndrome in neonates. And those hospitals do not have any physician anesthesiologist, let alone have a physician anesthesiologist on call. So it's very, very frustrating. It's very short-sighted of these organizations to not understand what the actual practice is out in the reality of practice is. And so SONAR was set up to create space, one, to identify what the actual practice was, and then also to create safe research for CRNAs in obstetrics moving forward. So we could go on all day, but I don't want to be the center of this. So,
Well, I think it's interesting. Why don't we maybe digress for just a moment and each one of you tell us why obstetrics, why OB, what lit that fire for each one of you? And Jonathan, we'll start with you because I can't imagine you've ever used obstetrics
You've
yourself.
ever had a baby, right?
I did not, but I do have 4 little ones. Close enough, I guess.
No, it is not even close, dude.
Hey, I don't know. They say kidney stones are pretty close.
Well, that is true.
That's right.
But
Haven't
you
had
don't
those
have
either.
to stay up all night for the next 18 years. So,
Well, that's a different podcast, I think.
Yeah.
Again, I started OB anesthesia here in the state in Washington, and very quickly realized the importance of CRNA obstetric services in here. 80% of the obstetric care is done by CRNAs alone in the state, mostly because it's a lot of rural in the state of Washington. And so my practice at that point specifically was quite unique because we were in the metro area of Seattle next to the humongous big center. And then, we were second in volume, and it was pretty empowering and actually quite humbling at the same time. But with Susie, like Susie said, it was about the same time. I was actually working on a proposal for the ANA, kind of like on the ground a little bit of my own to kind of like look a little bit more into the specialties of different anesthesia providers, like critical care and cardiac and things like that. Early on, just kind of like not officially. And then so when this issue came up with the obstetric, it just came up to be like, this is one perfect example of why we're extremely strong supporters of the ANA, have always been, will always be. At the same time, there should be a little bit more of a, specialized attention to it. And the best people to do that are the people that are actually doing the care, right? Because we're in it. We believe it, we breathe it, we're experts. And then so when the ACOG situation came up, it was like a perfect example to do that. And then so we went with it. And then so far has been very interesting, which we knew it's not an easy one. A physician anesthesiologist side of this, they did the same, right? They started this, they got a lot of pushback from their own organization for some time. And then so we're ready for something like that. Even though we haven't had that pushback from the ANA, it's been very, very cordial and very helpful.
So Sheena, what about you? What kind of lit that fire in you?
That I came to obstetrics in a very roundabout way. I am not a mother. I have no desire to have children. That is not in the cards for me. But the women that I take care of every day on the labor and delivery unit are heroes, are just absolutely the strongest people I've ever met in my life. The things that we have to do to bring humans into this world is just extreme. And I think, as most things that I've done in my life, I kind of did it out of rage. We need to take care of these people. We need to do better. We need to do the research. We need to figure out that translational piece between research and practice. And we need to be the ones actually doing it as CRNAs. So my career started out very clinical, heavy clinical, lots of hours, lots of call, lots of living in a hospital. I've probably spent more of my adult life in a call room than I have at home doing OB. I think it's just so frustrating because as much as we're putting into it right now, we're seeing the data show that maternal morbidity and mortality is increasing at an astronomical rate. There was a new study that just came out that showed between 2018 and 2022 in the US, maternal morbidity and mortality went up 27.7%. Those are insane numbers. What is going on? So I really do think that we need more people that are bedside, more people that are clinical, really looking at this and really digging into why that is. This is more than just a job. This is kind of our lot in life, how we're taking care of the world and doing obstetrics and helping bringing new humans here. Very roundabout.
Yeah. Susie, what about you?
If I'm perfectly honest, I was busy listening, so I wasn't thinking about what I was going to say. I was really good at regional to begin with. So when I came through school, I was one of those people who was like snappy and good at it. And what's really funny about it is that I had thought that labor and delivery was like for people who didn't take it seriously and it wasn't an emergency. And it turns out it's just the opposite. And the more I got entrenched with it, the more I became committed to it. And one of the things that we do as nurses who do anesthesia is we have such a profound capacity to meet these patients where they're at. And we don't see this kind of, one of the things I love about teaching when students come up is that, they've been doing anesthesia for a while and they think they know what they're doing. And they come up on a woman and she's like, and they are like, where's the Versed? And there's no Versed. We don't give women, you know what I mean? These people are screaming and they're shaking. And I'm like, and this is where your nursing skills come in. And this is where you get to you come around, you go, hey, it's okay. Look at me. We're okay. Because my thing is, if you are a person who says to a woman who is screaming in pain at the most vulnerable and terrified moment in her life, and you're coming up behind her with a loaded weapon, and by the way, you don't know what her history is, we know there's a lot of abuse out there, so you don't know what's come up behind her in her past. And so you have all those things going on. And you're like, calm down, or I can't do this if you're going to behave like this. And we aren't the people that typically do that. Nursing meets people where they're at, and it's amazing to watch the difference. And I'm very prideful about that, like prideful. I think it's amazing what we've done in this field and how we've been able to make a difference. Like every time I've been on a floor where they haven't had nurse CRNAs there before, they're like, oh my God, you care so much. And like, that's shocking to them. And it's disappointing to me that is shocking. But it's always that way. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we are able to make that difference. And I agree that our work is heavy because this is a huge specialty. The difference between why someone reacts one way in surgery is usually the exact opposite of what we do in OB. And in surgery, everybody goes to sleep. They get a tube. You get a tube. Tube them. If there's any kind of problem, tube them. If that happens in OB, it's the exact opposite. We want to do everything we can to not put a tube in this patient because that increased their risk. Also, we don't want to put babies to sleep. We don't want to be responsible for APGARs that are decreased by 2 to 3. That's not what we want to do. So we do everything we can to do the opposite. And so it's a really interesting flip of the script, and I love it. Obviously.
Well, it begs the question why it should be a specialization, a subspecialization within our community. I do some OB, kicking and screaming, if I have to, and I will be absolutely honest. We have interviewed 2 CRNAs who specialize in OB at Duke for high risk. They scared the crap out of me, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do it at all because I don't feel like I'm specialized enough. So, Sheena, why don't you tell us more reasons besides my fears why this needs to be a specialization?
That was a great episode, by the way.
Weren't
that
they
you did.
awesome?
They were
Yeah.
really good. Yeah,
They
they
were
were
good.
very, very
Placenta
good.
accreta scared me.
Yes.
Exactly.
still remember that.
Yeah, happy. It made my heart so happy listening to them speak so eloquently about it. So much knowledge behind it. I mean, it's just proof to me that the ones that are bedside doing it clinically, you've got the knowledge and the skills. It was incredible. I love that episode. It made me very happy. But why we need this as a specialization? There's a big difference. And I think the CRNA community would agree with me on this. There's a big difference in somebody who loves OB and somebody who tolerates OB. If you love OB, you go in, like Sue said, like you're going in, you're trying to make sure that this patient is okay. You're doing everything you can do to kind of get on their team, support them in any way possible. Versus somebody who's in between cases up in the main OR, they've got a gallbladder to do next, but OB department's calling because they need an epidural because they don't have a specialist team there. So they're going to run from their generalist case down to OB, pop in the epidural, go back up. And that's just the nature of the beast at some facilities. That's all they can manage with staffing. That's all they can manage with budget. But the care that those patients get, I don't think is as personalized as an OB team that's there taking care of them. They know they can call them. They know that we'll show up in a second. Whatever you need, we're here. And I think those that do kind of intermittent epidurals or intermittent spinals, whatever neuraxial you're doing at the time, if you're just doing those a couple times a year or even a couple times a month, that's a big difference than to somebody who's done like 6 epidurals today and 2 C-sections already, and it's 4:00 here. You know, like it's
God bless you. God bless you.
but it's just different. It's different. And if you don't have those specialist hands, if you've not focused on this, if you've not made it, a skill that you're really wanting to do, really proud of doing, really happy doing, it's a different thing. And there's a saying that, CRNAs either love OB or they hate OB. There's no in between. And I think that's very evident in practice.
Are you looking to transition into independent practice? AANA and Beyond the Mask are here to help you thrive as your own boss. Visit the 1099 CRNA Institute, taught by Beyond the Mask host Jeremy Stanley and Sharon Pierce. This comprehensive educational series provides detailed guidance on business structure, legal and tax implications, and financial management tailored specifically for 1099 CRNAs. Lean into the feeling of freedom and embrace the opportunity to be your own boss, with AANA as your partner on this exciting journey toward independence. Enroll now and gain the knowledge you need to navigate the business side of independent practice. Learn how to choose the right business structure, understand tax strategies, and manage contracts and finances with confidence. Plus, enjoy a special 20% discount using the code BEYOND1099 at checkout. Visit aana.com/1099 to learn more and start building the future you want. The 1099 CRNA Institute. Thrive as your own boss. Remember to visit aana.com/1099 and start using the code BEYOND1099 for a 20% discount.
Yeah, and I may add, just to kind of like not lose the track on this one, but it's also like you have to understand especially in states like the West Coast, for example, the East Coast is, when you have a department, as small as it is, that has any presence of obstetric care in there, but then think about the rural places in which is, one OR and there's one CRNA working the whole place, meaning ER, the floors, the ORs, and suddenly they need to take care of a patient that they don't have time to transfer anywhere. That was one of the main things at the beginning. We're like, well, we are the experts, 5,000 deliveries a year, this, and that. But what about the CRNA that works in the little OR with the hospital with 2 ORs that take care of a patient once every 2 months? And it just must be terrifying. And then we realized the lack of information, basic, sometimes available to them, to be able to be like, hey, I haven't taken care of a patient, and then the emergency of it, basic sometimes, like just refreshing, or like, what are we doing with these things now lately? And so that was a little scary to me to think about being in that situation, and at least try to give this patient the best possible chance at the best possible outcome,
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say the 3 times that I've been involved in obstetrics, I've learned something every time, but I have no desire to go back. I mean, that's all I can add to this conversation. It was a wonderful experience every time, but I was glad there was somebody else there that knew exactly what they were doing. And let me just tell everybody, if you're in there and you're kind of a lay person like me and your wife's having a baby, please don't look over the drape if they do a C-section and then comment that. The coolest thing about the whole process was the little fat cells that I got to see inside of you, honey.
Oh, Jesus.
Don't say that. Just
How
don't
long
say
did she not talk to you about that?
She said that's the only thing you could say to me was about my fat cells. I wouldn't even think it. I just thought it was cool. I mean, it looked like
Jeremy,
little combs, but
you must have had a lapse of consciousness. That is not like you at all.
So I have one and only one rule in all of anesthesia. I will be flexible on anything else, but that is that dad butts go in a seat. That is the rule.
to that point, as soon as I stood up, they all yelled at me to sit down. And I was like, no, I just want to kind of look. And they're like, no, you need to sit down. You need to sit down.
Yeah, in case you fall down.
Yeah, that's
We've all had it happen. And there goes Daddy. We've all had it happen.
Yeah, true story.
Yes. Well, I know that you guys are working on that Who We Are project. Can we talk about that a little bit and, why this is so crucial and kind of what you guys are doing and what you're uncovering there?
I'll do a little bit of this, but we also have Sheena and I just are having an article come out in February. So that's exciting too. That's a little bit different. But the Who We Are project is identifying every state. We finished Ohio. I think it's 89%. Just don't quote me right now because I don't have it. Of CRNAs provide the care in OB. So Ohio has Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati. Cleveland has some residents in their large center, but really CRNAs dominate the entire of Ohio. And part of the thing that's interesting to me is that I had started working in Pennsylvania. Eastern Pennsylvania is where I was working was the exact opposite, that CRNAs were not in OB. It was kind of shocking to them. My perception was like CRNAs do it everywhere. It's all over. But I learned a lot going to the East Coast. So we need to identify what CRNAs are exactly doing. And workforce studies are fine, but they're not exact. So we are contacting every obstetric hospital and identifying what the model is. And we're talking to only CRNAs because if it's a physician-run model, if it's all physicians, then we don't need to talk to those people. We already know what they do. The physicians do everything. But if it's a CRNA-run model, then we want to know, what does that mean? Does that mean you're supervised? Are you not supervised? Because a lot of times workforce models will say it's a supervised model, but we have very specific, like how often is the physician on the floor if they ever come up at all? And a lot of them are coming back like, no, we don't ever see. We might see a physician once a month. And so that's the difference in OB. If you work in the OR and it's supervised, you're going to see a physician. But in OB, that's a very different practice. And the practice versus reality of what workforce says and what billing says is, and it's not my business to get into what fraud is or what isn't fraud, because that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that the reality is that CRNAs run OB in the majority of the country, and we are going to pop through each state and find out whether or not that perception is true. So true for Ohio.
You bring up a very good point thinking about that, because it's taken us a long time as an organization to get down to the numbers for CRNAs, and 70 to 80% of all rural anesthesia is given by CRNAs, but we've never delineated out OB. And so the suspicion would be that that would mirror the rural anesthesia provision too. This has been kind of a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah, but also, like Jonathan said, in the major cities, we're doing all the OB as well, and they're not counting that.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up about reimbursement versus actuality, because even in the ACT model, we're masked. You can't see us behind that firewall of reimbursement. So even the numbers we think we have are much higher than what we think we have, and as far as CRNA impact.
It was very important to us because, like, regardless of what state you are in, regardless of what the regulations are, medical direction, whatever the model is, at the end of the day, there is only one person that puts the epidural on you. There's only one person that does the spinal, and there's only one person that sits right in front of you and walks you through the C-section. And then so that could be a medical directed model, to be honest with you. And then there's only one. And so, like, for us, it was more of like what the model is more like who's the primary care provider for that patient in anesthesia at that moment. You can have 3 people around you, but there's only one that puts the epidural. And then so, like you said, it's kind of like masks a little bit about what's really going on. And we're trying to put a light on it. And hopefully we can.
Sheena, so what other projects are you guys currently working on? You're doing your PhD right now. So
I am.
Are you kind of roping all this together and killing 2 birds with 1 stone?
It is expanding my program of research, working with SONAR for sure. I'm very, very grateful for the AANA Foundation. I recently received a general research grant from the foundation to do some of this work. So I'm very excited about that. I'm just getting started on it. But Susan and I have an article coming out, I think in February, in the AANA Journal, where we looked at, I don't want to say the availability, but the importance of having obstetric anesthesia rotations for nurse anesthesia residents. Are they actually getting their hands on OB patients? Are they managing them? I think there's a big, I have a learner today, I have a resident today, and she's great. She's doing a great job. Shout out. Good job. But there's a very big difference between your hands and actually doing a neuraxial procedure and the management of an OB patient. And I think with some of the, numbers that are required for graduation, for completion of anesthesia school, they're looking at, did you do this epidural? Did you do the spinal? But I want to know too, did you manage this patient? Because that's a whole different ballgame. Regional is one thing. Like Sue said, when she was first getting into anesthesia, she's good at it. She's good at regional. She can pop a line into anybody. She's doing a great job. And then I think something that we need to learn and we need to focus on with our residents is, are they getting the full management experience? So this article that we have coming out was just a small study that Sue's led up in Pennsylvania, looking at nurse anesthesia residents and how they feel with the OB anesthesia residency experience. So Suze, you want to talk more about that real quick?
We had a unique opportunity to survey the same college before they had a rotation and after they had a rotation. And so that was why we did it, because they were able to sort of compare apples to apples, so to speak. And so and then we also have another article under review, which is our biggest thing. Do you want to talk about that, Sheena?
I think I'll let you take the reins on it, primary author,
Okay.
but we were definitely looking at more into the business of it as well.
If you're looking to combine top-tier education with an incredible destination, you'll want to check out the upcoming Nurse Anesthesia Update, happening November 30th through December 3rd at Atlantis Paradise Island in the Bahamas. This program is designed specifically for CRNAs and covers real-world topics like anesthesia challenges, practical considerations, and emerging trends in our field. And we're especially excited to share that Beyond the Mask host Sharon Pierce, former AANA president, of course, will be there as faculty, leading discussions on topics like bridging the generation gap, alternative therapies, leadership, and empowering anesthesia providers. The program is approved for up to 20 Class A CE credits, including pharmacology credits, so you can learn, grow, and earn while you're there. Plus, it's in Atlantis. World-class dining, beaches, water parks, and plenty to enjoy with family or colleagues. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more and register.
We looked at an independent CRNA group that had taken over what was previously managed by MDAs, and looked at safety metrics. We looked at patient satisfaction, staff satisfaction. What am I forgetting?
Cost.
Cost analysis.
Money.
So it was a big win on all accounts, and almost too big of a win. We're going to be revamping it and putting it under review for a journal here coming up soon. So it's a very successful outcome, though.
Can't wait to read that one and hear, especially the financial side of it. But I'll digress there. But I think we all know the answer, right, Sharon?
Yep.
What's the answer?
The answer is always money.
What was the
What was
question?
the question?
What's the question, man?
That's Jeremy's byline.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're going to put that
It's
on
true
his
story.
tombstone
That's right.
one day.
Yeah.
Money.
Maybe they'll do
What was the
something for
question?
me at the ANA, on the board up there or something.
That's it.
How are you guys working with ANA? I mean, you mentioned earlier there's not really a formal organization out there. I'm assuming that maybe you're trying to entice the ANA to do a little bit better. Sheena, I'm so glad you got the money from the foundation for the wonderful research you're doing. But how else are you working with the ANA to kind of strengthen the knowledge out there of OB and maybe entice other CRNAs to kind of go down this way, because a lot of CRNAs don't like OB?
Disclaimer, I've been involved in a couple of initiatives throughout the years, non-related to OB, most related to like advancing profession, like title, names and that stuff like that. So I've been very involved, but also I learned a lot about how the ANA as a whole works in a sense, and I'm very respectful to that because I understand, it's there's so many hats that I need to wear, and the level that they operate is different than the level that we operate, for example, right? It's really high up over there, and that is the way it should be. I can tell you that there has never been any pushback from them other than the fact that it is we're a mom and pop grassroots type of initiative, and then that at the same time, our success is determined based on how many people are we gonna make mad, in a sense, within the ANA, not necessarily, but outside. I mean, and like this, the work that the research group is doing, it's gonna do a little bit of that, because we're gonna shine the light and things that are potentially kind of like people. And then, we have had a very, very cordial relationship with the ANA since day one. Very, very communicative, but at the same time, wish they did a little more, I think. But again, it's, we are on this not for today, but we're here doing this for tomorrow. And we know that an organization like this or an initiative like this, it is not something that we can necessarily put a time frame. It just depends on how things flow. And I can say is, in general, and Susie, they have been cordial and helpful. I mean, to be honest with you, the first we did our opening to it in a Congress in the ANA, and it was 100% supported by them. They provide everything, and the doors open, and we're in communication with the education department, with the practice department throughout. So helpful, supportive, I think. Not officially, but hopefully at some point we'll get there, and that's okay, I think.
Jonathan, it brings up a good point. I'm just kind of thinking, because I'm a numbers guy, and I don't know the answer to this, and I don't know whether you guys do or not, but any ideas on the percentage of population, number of CRNAs that are actually doing OB out there? If there's 50 some thousand CRNAs, I mean, what size of the population is actually doing OBs? Anybody know?
No, but I think that's a really good point that when we count the hospitals and we'll have a population, we can sort of deduce from that. But no, I don't. Do you, Sheena?
I don't. I will say, one of my arguments is always that you may not have a cardiac service at your hospital. You may not have a vascular service or a neuro or whatever, but most hospitals nowadays have an obstetric service of some sort. Mamas are delivering babies. The number one
Everywhere.
reason for admission is childbirth in the US.
Susie, it might be worth a conversation with the AANA to have that question put on the practice, even though we only get a small subset of people who answer that. It might be, it's still a representative number.
It's a great point, Sharon.
So, and that's easy enough for them to do. You go through, I think that's sent out through Lewis's department, and Lewis can make things happen. So it would be worth a conversation to have that question added in.
I would think, the more you can show that a large percentage of the population is doing this, the more gravity you give to SONAR for maybe more funding and more opportunities and raising awareness. Like you said, ANA does a great job, but there are so many initiatives and so many balls up in the air, and you got to go where the majority of CRNAs are. And if you could show that 30% of CRNAs of the total population are doing OB, well, maybe you get a little more grease on your wheel, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I just want to really quick circle back to the AANA. We are very clear on that. The goal will never be to dilute the AANA. In fact, we are waiting for them to give us a chance to apply for what's it called?
Affiliate membership.
Affiliate membership. So that's going to be something we will immediately apply for. And then, cause they've made it a category, they just haven't worked out the logistics yet. And then, the other thing is that, my joke is always like, we want you to take this over. Once, so our goal is to get enough traction behind us so that we're attractive enough for them to want to take us over. I mean, we do not want to dilute the organization. We want it to remain strong and to be a part of it. And we're not looking to take anything away from the ANA. I just want to make sure that was out there because big fan right here of the ANAs.
Me a little bit too.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a great point. We hear that all the time, some of these other organizations diluting the community and so forth. And not that we need to answer that or even debate it here today, but that's a really good point, Susie. Your goal with this is not to do that for sure. It's to bring it back to ANA. So, and I know that makes Sharon happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we kind of wrap this up, for folks listening, how can they support SONAR or take part in this forward with OB recognition, and some thoughts about this? And I know this is a heavy lift that you are doing right now. Of course, 8 years ago, whenever we started a podcast and our first one got 15 downloads, we never thought it would grow to what it is today. And sometimes time will help your process, just getting the word out there. So y'all tell us all about it.
I might say something and then whoever else wants to do that. Right? I think, one thing that I notice a lot for us is, the concept of, resources are key, right? So not just people, but also financial resources. We have a really small membership, it's $100 a year. We're trying to make it to be like, give something back, like actual, trying to do webinars and things like that, they kind of cover that. But in reality, I would like people to understand a little bit about the fact that none of us are making a cent on this for years. And it's more of a cause, right? It is an idea, is something that we think we need as a profession, and that no one has put this much effort into it. And then so if anybody wants to join, join because they believe in what we're trying to get to, more than what can they get out of. And I think that is a really hard thing to do, especially for a group like ours that is very small and we're just starting. The more resources we get, the fastest we move is basically what it is.
SONAR-OB.org. That's all I'm going to say. www.sonar-ob.org.
And just if you are approached by us to help with some of the research, especially with the Who We Are project, where we're trying to locate every maternity unit in the country to get that hard data to be able to present it well to you, the CRNAs, try to answer our call for research, try to help anytime we come looking for you. That's a huge help. That helps move all of this along much better. And like Jonathan said, we do a webinar as well. The last one that we did was great. We had some great guest speakers that came on there, talked about the new science within OB anesthesia, new medications, new ways of doing things that you may not be aware of, especially if you're just in your little bubble in your little hospital, just trying to make it, just trying to take care of your patients and do the best you can.
Well, I think this is all great stuff. Thank you guys for being on with us today. Thank you so much for what you do for the CRNA community. Again, this is something that I think is needed out there. It's something, as you guys have pointed out, is somewhat masked. We really don't know the true ramifications of this, and you guys are shining light on an area that really needs it. So thank you for all you're doing for free, because I know your time is valuable. You're here talking to us today. You guys are constantly out pitching SONAR. I mean, Susie and I have been talking about this for quite a while now, and so I know you all are working hard. So we just want to say thank you from the CRNA community, and thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for what you do too. I just am endlessly grateful for what you put out. So thank you.
Hey, Susie, the best is yet to come, right, Sharon?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, let me just tell you guys this, because when Sharon and I first started this, we had no clue where this was going. And like she said, our first episode was 15 downloads. And now Sharon and I have so many balls up in the air from this podcast and so many things going on, and things just snowball and snowball. And that's where you guys are going to get to. I truthfully believe that.
Absolutely. I do too.
So
good job, y'all.
Thank
You make
Thanks so
me
much.
proud. You make me proud.
That's
Thanks.
right. I'm going to say it's a wrap.
Thank you for tuning in to Beyond the Mask. If you enjoy the show and want to help us grow, the best way to support us is simple. Leave a review on your favorite podcast platform, share the show on social media, and tell your friends. Your word of mouth is what keeps us going strong. We're proud to consistently rank in the top 50 medical podcasts nationwide and to be #1 in the CRNA community. All thanks to listeners like you. Your support helps us stay there, and we couldn't do it without you. We'll see you on the next Beyond the Mask.